I think parents, and especially Asian American parents, Korean American parents, sometimes we get stuck on test scores, AP test scores, things like that. And certainly there's a benefit to testing well and passing the AP classes and so forth. But once again, this opportunity to have like really strong mental health, to be able to talk about the things that you're passionate about, to be able to tell your story, to be able to civically engage with your community, to have a purpose for what it is that you're doing. These are also very important, not only college going skills, but life skills as well. And I've been invited to the Korean parents meeting, the Korean American parents meeting, so that they could just feel comfortable and be able to talk about issues that matter to the community. A thought came to my mind. I wished that my mother had an opportunity when I was in school to have a group to connect with like this. Or I got called up to answer a question, was on Korean Americans, mental health, and then I guess I was responding to what are we doing in the classroom to address mental health. So I talked about our first best instruction, how it begins with knowing students by name, need, assets, and their stories. I talked about the community building that begins very early on in a school year and continues throughout. I talked about our civic engagement and learning, which talks about how to build friendly norms, raise the students' voices so that they could talk about an issue that they care about, and then leads them to doing something about it. Doesn't that help with mental health? And the mental health of young people, when they can name it and talk about it and listen to one another's stories and being able to help each other to accomplish these tasks, doesn't that help with mental health? But I thought that was a great question to be asked. Like, what can we be doing in our very own classrooms to address the mental health, not only of our Korean Americans, but all Americans? But I was glad that the Korean Americans' parents had brought that to the table, because oftentimes there's a stigma attached to mental health, especially in the Asian American community. So I was just so pleased to be able to see the interest in our parents, and that also we had a space for them to feel comfortable and talk about what it is that they cared about so that we could support them in accomplishing this work together. This is where I also talked about how a Korean American studies class would be so helpful in helping students to know their own story, tell their own story, have others listen with empathy and respect, and to do something good with their story. Once again, if I asked many folks, not just Korean Americans, but anyone, like, could you name 3 Korean Americans that have made an impact in the United States of America? And there are certainly so many, but I think many would struggle with naming 3 or 2 or even 1. So I think, this idea of having a chance to know your story and tell your story, that's so powerful for Korean American students, Asian American students, and all students, because once again, the Korean American story is a story like many others, so many can identify with the elements of the migration experience and the story of resilience, but also it's a story like no other at the same time, and it gives unique perspective and lens to appreciate your own personal story, whether you're Korean American or not. And when you know your story and you understand your identity and you think about your future purpose in life, doesn't that impact mental health as well and give us a more positive outlook when we know who we are and where we're going? I think this is a big question that our young people, especially in middle and high school, are asking, and could do so much to address mental health. I think parents, and especially Asian American parents, Korean American parents, sometimes we get stuck on test scores, AP test scores, things like that. And certainly there's a benefit to testing well and passing the AP classes and so forth. But once again, this opportunity to have like really strong mental health, to be able to talk about the things that you're passionate about, to be able to tell your story, to be able to civically engage with your community, to have a purpose for what it is that you're doing. These are also very important, not only college going skills, but life skills as well. When you get into the workplace, they're not asking about my test scores typically. Oftentimes what they're looking at are like my people skills, right? Like my 5 C's, communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and maybe what's needed most important of all, and isn't really in the Common Core, but I think is very important, is the 5th C of compassion. How are we growing compassion? Not only compassion for others, but also compassion for ourselves. And I think that's another way to address the mental health, reminding our students that when they're involved in meaningful projects like that, internships and growing in the 5 Cs, that also helps with mental health and prepares them for a future and develops that sense of well-being for the whole child. Also, when we as educators give relevant work for students that's helping them not only identify what it is that they're passionate about, but somehow is helping prepare them for college, like actual college applications or career opportunities, when we're giving them those opportunities in the school, in the classroom setting, not some additional extra classes that they have to take, what a great service for the students, and so helpful also to mental health when they see that connection between content and careers, content and their future. Doesn't that also address the mental health? And also another thing that I think helps the mental health of children in the classroom are caring teachers. And I think every teacher cares. I remember I used to think, hey, if I'm spending all this time grading and designing lessons, that is going to be what shows students that I really care tremendously about them. And certainly that's a component of it, right? But, they just want to know that I care about them, that I'm letting them know that I care about them, that I'm concerned about them, or that I'm proud of them, that I affirm them. Those are the things that they're wanting to see in the classroom as well. Sometimes students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so as teachers, a part of great instruction, and I think a great opportunity we have as educators, is to really go out of our way to show students that we care about them. And of course, this is tough because sometimes what one student finds meaningful could be different for another. So that's the great challenges as educators in the classrooms, the sizes that we have to show that care and consideration to each and every one. We want to do it, but man, it's such a challenge, but we want to do it. And if there's a teacher or a program or a school that has done for that for you, parents, I hope you'll let them know. Sometimes as educators, the times that we hear from parents, oftentimes more frequently than you would think, is if there's a problem, not when there's a blessing. And there's so many moments where students are being impacted in such a positive way. Don't think you're troubling a school to let them know, hey, you're doing a great job, or telling the teacher, thank you for this. And it will make the teacher's day, because that's the reason so many of us entered the field, to make a difference. And you letting us know that they're making a difference as parents and as loved ones, the best. So thank you for those of you who are regularly communicating with us educators and letting us know what's going right. Once again, I hope this isn't a too simplistic view of how to address mental health for our young people. But once again, I'm just sharing one example of what can happen in the classroom to really make a huge impact in the lives of students and address the mental health challenges that so many of our young people are dealing with.